year, globally, 85 to 90 million vehicles, new vehicles, will be sold globally. That's cars, utilities, trucks, small, medium, and large. 85 to 90 million. Think about the income and the wealth and the opportunity that provides. So my theme that I wanted to share with you in terms of global is go out and grab it. It's a great opportunity for everybody because it will be with us for at least a decade. Now, the second point I want to make in terms of the outlook for the U.S. economy is what a so-so economic recovery. I mean, talk about no pulse. We've been, believe it or not, at the end of this month, we are closing out 5 years of quote-unquote economic expansion. Can you believe it? 5 years. This expansion started in June of 2009, and we've had average annualized growth of 2.4%. Now that's about a full percentage point below what is typical. So, you know, as we grapple with our local economy and, you know, how inextricably linked we are to this national economy, we have to recognize that we are still in a very modest growth track. Now this year we do expect growth in the U.S. to be about 2.5% to 3%, and the Michigan economy should be roughly in that range, even though we are running about a percentage point higher in terms of the unemployment rate. So now, a lot of questions around how long will this expansion last? And you know, the one thing about business cycles is that expansions never die of old age. Something happens. And as you know from your experience, you know, an oil price shock, if oil moves up to $150 a barrel very rapidly, then, you know, that causes some reduction in economic activity. But also policy mistakes can cause the end of an expansion. And then the third major reason is that we have movements in confidence. We have waves of optimism, i.e. investors buying Italy's bonds today. Or we have waves of pessimism, so that is also another reason. But I would suggest to you that with a 2.5% to 3% economy, and hopefully, you know, gaining some momentum, we'll start to see better employment growth. And many of you know, right now, employment growth is running about 1.7%. Wage growth is about 1.9%. We need to see much more in order for not only the national economy, but our economy here to thrive. And of course, as you know, the auto sector has been one of the strong suits in the economy since the financial crisis. In fact, statistically, 13 cents out of every additional dollar of GDP is related to automotive production. The multiplier for employment for autos, as you know, according to the Center for Automotive Research, is 10. So for every plant job in autos, we expect to see 9 other jobs, either in other goods industries or service producing industries. So we have really come back to health. We have a growing competitive mindset. And I think that offers up tremendous value for our local economy. So with that, I don't want to overextend my time. I think Cindy is going to moderate some Q&A. Thank you.
We have some questions to start off with, but we're most interested in your questions. So there are cards at the table that you can write them down on, and someone will be around to pick them up. Also, I just wanted to let you know that Sandy has to leave very promptly at the end of this session because he has another speaking engagement. And so if you see him duck out, it's not because the questions got too tough to handle.
Don't rule out that possibility too.
I was trying to give you some cover, you know. But anyway, here's a question for both of you. Michigan has 11,000 Hispanic-owned businesses ranging from mom and pop shops to mid-sized companies, of which only 300 are registered as minority certified, but they generate $4 billion in gross sales. What is your opinion on how minority-owned companies can best position themselves to become part of the supply chain of larger companies?
Ladies first.
No, I think, you gave a great introduction, and I couldn't agree more with your perspective on that. Outreach, networking, ensuring that you've got a great competitive business equation, and it is just, blocking and tackling, moving out there, developing the right leads, and being very proactive. I couldn't really add any more to your perspective on that. That is a tried and true approach.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add to that, because I think we know what the recipe is for success, in that space. One of the things I did when I ran the Small Business Administration is that I was actually responsible for the federal government's minority contracting monitoring. And interesting process. And I know, essentially firsthand how difficult it is to be certified to work either in the federal government, state government has its own rules, the corporations obviously have their own rules as well too. But if you can take the time to do that, it is hugely beneficial because, when I was in government and I got pitched for business, the first question, I would ask is, are you certified? They say no. So well, listen, even if, we all thought that you had the best product and the best value, and that's the threshold, right? You've got to bring the best product and the best value first, right? It's not what your status is, but even if you had the best product and the best value, if you weren't certified, the time it takes, the contracting period would have been over. So take the time to do it and reap the benefits as time goes on.
Are minority-owned companies at the table participating in current economic development initiatives led by the state or local governments? If not, how can they become part of that conversation?
Probably sounds like a neat question. Yes, absolutely. What we find, so our organization, the Direct Regional Chamber, we're responsible for the regional economic development activity for all of Southeast Michigan. We work with the counties, we work with the municipalities, we work very closely with the governor and the MHCC. And so when we travel internationally, we take businesses with us. And the international marketplace not only wants to know, they need to know that the businesses that are already here are not only high-tech, not only well-run and doing well, but they are diverse. And that's important for a whole bunch of different reasons. One, smart companies know, and I know this is something that Ellen and I were talking about before the program got started. Smart companies like Ford know that the stronger their diversity is in their supply base or in their talent base, the stronger the company is, the stronger the product is. And that's not just an American ethos. It's not just a Detroit or auto company ethos. That is an international ethos. So we can't go to the international marketplace by presenting just kind of one segment of the Michigan economic picture. We have to present the whole diversified picture. That makes our job a lot easier.
Ellen, technology improvement and innovation is increasingly driving growth in the automotive industry. When you look at this trend, where do traditional manufacturing businesses fit, and what new business opportunities are projected?
Yeah, Cindy, I think there probably is no such thing as a traditional manufacturing industry anymore. I mean, we are all in the technology sector in some respects. It really revolutionizes the way that we're able to do business. So in manufacturing, as you know, there are significant research and development efforts in the area of not only the electrified vehicle, but the connected vehicle, and how that can offer up more value for our customers. So technology is part of every aspect of not just manufacturing, but all of the service-producing industries. And I haven't even mentioned the way that it is affecting marketing and distribution channels. So in sub-Saharan Africa, you know, most people have mobile devices, they have phones. Marketing and selling vehicles in sub-Saharan Africa is also a technology proposition, as it is in India, where there are many different ways that the Indian consumer with the technology is connecting to understand and educate about the kind of products that they want to buy. So it's integral to our ability to excel and to be competitive.
So can I just jump
Sure.
on that?
Absolutely.
Just a couple things I'd like to add to that, and Ellen will kick me if I stray here. So one of the things that I think most people in this room know, that roughly 75% of the cars that we drive that may have a Ford badge on it or a Toyota badge or whatever badge it has on it, is not made by Ford or GM or Chrysler or Toyota or whatever. It's made by a myriad of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that are out there. So that's a huge opportunity to get part of that supply chain, which what we were talking about earlier. But the flip side of that is the way that the automotive industry has done such an exceptionally good job of globalizing. And and of the domestics, Ford has definitely done the best job of that. I mean, look at a Ford Focus. The Ford Focus that's sold in America is largely the same product that you get just about anywhere else in the world. So that means, as a supplier, you have to be willing and able to provide that quality product to that global supply. You can't just have one supplier for one part. And for the American Focus, it needs to be kind of a global thing. Is that right? And that's what I hear from suppliers a lot, that there's both a greater opportunity to take advantage of small businesses in the supply chain, but you have to be ready to go.
Yeah, and in fact, as you know, we have revolutionized our product development system. So in prior periods, we would have 3 separate engineering centers for the Focus. We've now globalized many, indeed nearly all of our platforms. So that's certainly the case.
Can either of you speak to the minimum wage increase and the impact on small business in Michigan? There's a special interest on the retail and restaurant sector.
I will say, from an economic standpoint, there are many research studies that have provided not only very good fundamental reasons for raising the minimum wage, and also many studies that suggest that it would diminish the opportunity, especially by adding additional costs for small businesses. In general, I guess I would say, how about if we focus more on a wage that allows people to be productive and to accommodate a lot of their needs on a day-to-day basis, the so-called living wage. So I think the research is mixed, but there are potential solutions that we could be working on with regard to how can we make sure people have a living wage.
How do you see the growth in Mexico benefiting the U.S. and the region in regards to automotive manufacturing?
Excellent. I met with about 100 dealers in Phoenix and in LA. these business people are very well positioned to take advantage of the excellent growth potential in Mexico. Many of you, I'm sure, have read about the potential additional investment opportunities in the oil sector in Mexico, and the constitutional reform that is now in train and will offer up additional benefits. That, coupled with other structural reforms, are offering higher growth potential in Mexico and significant opportunities for our businesses to engage and expand their business in Mexico. So I think that that is a significant upside in the next 10 years.
And a related question to that is, what's the current state of commerce between the U.S. and Latin America and the outlook for that?
Well, you know, as you, another headline out there, of course, is this severe situation in Argentina and in Venezuela. You know, two great countries that, again, have wonderful labor force and great potential. But here's, you know, two examples of where policy has adversely impacted the economy and therefore their society and their ability to grow. We're now in the middle of recessions in both of those countries with hyperinflation, which means inflation be you know, above 10, 20, 30%. We've seen over a 50% devaluation in the currency in Venezuela, and really a collapse of the underpinnings. So policy has to change. The politics and the policy have to change to renew those countries as they go forward. Now look at the Pacific coast in South America, Chile, Peru, Colombia. Excellent transitions that those economies have underway and excellent growth fundamentals. So it is a mixed picture, Cindy, in that regard.
Sandy, how can the Chamber promote in specific innovative ways regional collaboration between local and regional government entities and businesses?
So I think we're doing that. You know, one of the things that we started when I walked in the door in 2010 is that we got all the counties together very quietly and said, you know, at the very least, let's stop having one county take a trade mission to China and another county follow 2 months later and talk to the same people. Not only did we look disorganized, we were disorganized. And it's funny, you know, because I've never lived in a place where counties were as big a deal as they are here in Michigan. Counties are kind of a power center here. You know, where I grew up on the West Coast, I'm not sure people really knew what county they were in. It really didn't matter. So it was a new thing for me. And also, the county form of government is really something that only the United States has. So it really doesn't translate well internationally. So when someone goes and says they represent a county, in China, the best translation is village. So basically, it's like the village king has come to visit us here in China. And so it wasn't exactly the best message. And even when we, you know, represent Southeast Michigan as a whole, which is, depending on who you count, you know, 5+ million people, you know, that's a really good neighborhood in some areas of China. So we, you know, you have to kind of put all these things in perspective, and that worked out really well. So we have, and actually DTE's in the room, and I want to thank DTE. You know, we have a CEO council co-chaired by Jerry Anderson at DTE, Nancy Schlichting at Henry Ford Health System, Chip McClure, the former chair and CEO of Meritor, who have bring together on a regular basis the county executives and all of the senior business leaders, the CEOs or the presidents of the major companies that are actively engaged in economic development in Southeast Michigan. And we meet on a regular basis to make sure that those lines of communication are open. We also now have a shared calendar of travel. So we have eliminated very quietly but very effectively, Bob Fakano going to China and Brooks Patterson following, 2 months later. That just doesn't happen anymore. We've been able to take care of that. We as the chamber, we're the lead along with the Right Place, which is based in Grand Rapids, for all of the governor's trade missions. So when the governor travels to Europe or to China, we're not only with him on those trips, we actually organize most of those trips. And so we're able to kind of create a cohesive message to international audiences, and it's working very well. We have a ways to go. We as a region are still not as unified as we need to be. I kind of mentioned that in my more formal presentation, but we've made tremendous progress. And if there's any silver lining to the bankruptcies that occurred in 2008, the world ending in 2008, is that anyone who thought that we could continue business as usual, either as government entities or as companies, they really kind of realize now that we've got to do differently going forward.
If immigration reform takes place, would it have an impact on the auto industry, given that a population that currently doesn't have access to credit would have better access to that, and so be better able to buy cars?
Well, here again, I'm back to some of the economic research on that, and free trade and the ability to have a mobility between countries has been shown to help in terms of economic growth and economic activity. So I think the conclusions there are very straightforward. It's a plus.
Can I jump on that as well too? So we're strongly in favor of immigration reform, smart, comprehensive immigration reform. I worked on it when I was in government in 2005, and we beat that issue until it was long after it was clear that the president was losing that battle. There are two aspects to the immigration battle. One, there is the illegal immigration challenge, and if you're depending on where you are in the country physically, you have a different view on that. The issue that we're really focused on is keeping highly skilled immigrants in our country. And I don't want to speak for Ford specifically, but the companies that we work with on a day in and day out basis are constantly saying that, listen, we have a skills gap in our company. We have great jobs, well-paying. I mean, $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year jobs for engineers and other highly skilled positions. And we're training those people in the United States today. They're coming to the University of Michigan. They're coming to universities all across this country, and then we send them home. Then we send them home, we educate them in the best, the U.S. education system, higher ed system is still by far the best in the world. And then we send them home to compete against us. And it used to be that, if you wanted to be with a successful, innovative, global reach company, you really had to be in North America or some European countries. Now we're seeing that these companies are coming from all corners of the globe. So they can take those talents and go home and be successful. We need to keep them here. And so we desperately need to fix that. That'll not only help drive our economy, it'll help our companies right here in Michigan do better because they'll have a better pool of talent to access, and that'll help them become more competitive.
Are there one or two programs coming on or in process that will help improve the economy in Detroit and create jobs?
That's probably me as well too. Where's Ike when you really need it, right? Yes. Programs, again, yes, certainly, the new mayor we work very closely with is doing some really fabulous things. But really what government can do, at the local level or at the state level or certainly the national level, is just really create the environment. Create the environment for entrepreneurs to thrive. To create the environment for companies to be successful. To create an environment where talent is attracted to. If government can do those three things, the economy will flourish. But what government can't do is really create a long-term successful jobs program. They can create the environment, but they can't actually create the jobs, because if government creates jobs, so I spent a lot of time in government, right? Worked for 2 presidents, 1 U.S. senator. We could create jobs through a federal jobs program, but then it's just you paying me to pay someone else, who's then back paying you. You're not really growing the economy in any really meaningful way. So you need the private sector to grow, and government can create the environment, but they really can't create the jobs.
Alan, do you have a prediction for interest rates going forward and how that would affect or should affect how we should think about the national debt?
Well, we've all enjoyed a very long period of extremely low interest rates. And as you know, even today, the 10-year bond yield is trading below 3%. And if you were in the market for a mortgage even 10 years ago, you know that that is an extremely low rate. Mortgage rates now are at about 4.3% and did move up, as you know, about a full percentage point about a year ago when the former Federal Reserve Chairman Bernanke began to telegraph that at some point in the future they would have to start to remove all the substantial monetary stimulus. Now, where are we today? Today, we are in a position where the Fed has now reduced their financial asset purchases to $45 billion a month. That started on May 1st. They are on a track to lower that to 0, likely by November. So at the October Monetary Policy Committee meeting, they likely will say, okay, as of November, we are no longer going to be purchasing financial assets. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to start selling financial assets. And if you go on their website, you'll see that the Federal Reserve is now holding $4.3 trillion of assets. And in normal times, it's $800 billion. Now, this sounds like a long-winded answer to your question, but that's really critical. We are going to get through this period where they will reduce the amount of asset purchases, and the policy officials have told us that they will likely start raising interest rates next year. So a year from now, 15 months from now, we'd start to see some interest rate increases. Of course, investors can make decisions about how many U.S. Treasuries they'll buy, and we should likely see them expect that interest rate increase, and therefore long-term interest rates could be moving up a little more and probably in advance of that second, third quarter of 2013.
How can we balance the highly skilled immigrant wave with immigrants who are still building their skills in order to avoid a state of classism?
That's a really good
Yeah. So it's a tough question, so it goes to you.
Well,
Go to Ellen, right?
but Sandy, you spoke to that because your point about education is absolutely critical. Training and education are so vital to our economic success and family success. Without the training, the skills, the education, we know that our opportunities would be far more limited.
I think, and the reason I focus on education so much is, one, obviously it's an economic issue, right? We need it as a country, we need it as a company, but also it's an incredible human issue, because there really is no other ladder to move from one social class to another social class, or one economic class, to another economic class, without the education ladder. And our education ladder in the United States is, I don't know if it's broken, but it's missing a few rungs, right? And that is a huge challenge for us, because look at the age that we live in. We live in the internet age. And, that's not just a talking point. Think about what that means. It means that, internet commerce has achieved what social justice advocates have been trying to achieve for generations, right? Because internet commerce is a platform that is